riot or revolt. Sometimes you have to start off in analyzing things in terms of why the question itself. You see, sometimes we get off, and I see some of us on TV, we're so quick to try to answer the question, we don't question the question. So, why are you asking? What difference is the answer going to make? And often the question implies options depending on the answer. What would be the response if I were to call the Los Angeles disturbances riots instead of revolts? See, it's an important question there. And in a sense, we're asking and making this question because we understand implicitly that when one sees it as a riot or sees it as revolt, it implies different kinds of responses, different kinds of approaches. Because even though riot and revolt are not as cleanly delineated or defined as we would like to think, they do, and they overlap a great deal. They do also have some differences in implication that become important. Because often people see in its essence, a riot as being fundamentally irrational, fundamentally having little or no real rational purpose, an expression of rage, frenzy, as indicative of people who have lost self-control and self-direction, as indicative of some type of psychological contagion where people lose their ethical and moral values and are swept away by the emotions of the moment or by rumor or by agitators who happen to take advantage of their lack of self-control and who become, for the moment perhaps, their egos and direct them in various ways. Often the word riot implies, to a certain degree, in certain circumstances, a shifting leadership or an absence of leadership, or what we might call plural leadership, where you have a number of power centers and people and groups are kind of just moving off on their own for their own reasons, except that the only thing they have in common is a will to destroy and to be violent. Revolt, even though a riot can be a form of revolt, but revolt sort of implies a renunciation of allegiance to authority, a refusal to go along anymore, whereas one went along in the past, as a statement about the legitimacy of authority. A revolt is a form of accusation that one lays against authority. It's a form of condemnation, accusing those in authority of breach of contract, of violation of the social contract, moving beyond an understood mandate. A revolt is an act of refusal. And it is not only, though, a form of negation where one refuses, but also in another way, an act of affirmation by the person who's refusing or by the people who are defying authority it means that they are often making a statement about themselves and about their humanity. And they're making statements about morality and about the fact that they perceive the authorities as having engaged in immoral and unwarranted behavior. So in that regard, it becomes important to distinguish between the two, even though there is a question as whether these distinctions will make much of a difference after all. Because from the point of view of those in authority, the tendency will be to call a revolt a riot. Because you see, for the authorities to admit that it's a revolt, to a degree implies that they must begin to question the legitimacy of their authority. They must begin to examine whether they have actually breached a contract. They may be forced to give those that accuse them some credibility. And they may be forced to face the possibility that the revolt is justified on a number of bases. They may be forced to recognize that those in revolt are real human beings and have humanity. And they may then have to face the fact that they truly may be wrong and immoral in what they're doing. That's asking a lot of people who are in control of society. And you can see why then they almost irresistibly will define any protest, legitimate or otherwise, in terms of riotous behavior. Because one of the things that the authorities tend to do, of course, is to defend their own collective egos, as we talked about in Black on Black violence, you see. To justify their own behavior, to try to maintain their own sense of superiority. They defend themselves against the possibility that if they admit even a bit that they are wrong or that their behavior is immoral, that the foundations on which their domination is built may begin to crumble. So consequently then, from the authoritarian point of view, it becomes more advantageous for them to define our behavior, no matter how legitimate, no matter how much the accusation of our, no matter how much our behavior is justified by circumstances, to call that behavior riotous. Because it helps them to maintain their own self-image. And so in the light of this, a long debate in terms of riot or revolt, from our point of view, is probably not worth the energy. Because those that run the society will insist on seeing it as riotous behavior. Perhaps we need to convince some of us of the fact that we are not talking about riotous behavior. But from the point of view of those that run the society, it is pointless. As long as we are sure that our behavior represents a statement about our condition and about our humanity, then that is all we need to push forward